Hi, 4th grade, and Scotch About It here. This is the video for week 7, day 1. Okay, so this is aligned to Eureka Math Module 5, lesson 22. So our learning target, our objective for today is I can add or subtract fractions less than 1 from a whole number using visuals. Okay, so we're going to be adding or subtracting fractions that are less than 1 from a whole number, and we're going to be doing that using a couple different visual strategies today, okay? So for our daily warm-up, first it just wants you to count by 2s to 20, starting at 0, okay? So you can go ahead and do that. I know that we know how to count by 2s, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. All right, then now we're going to count by 2 tenths to 20 tenths, and we're going to start at 0 tenths. So we have 0 tenths, 2 tenths, 4 tenths. All right, next we're going to have 6 tenths. Then we're going to have 8 tenths. Okay, then 10 tenths. All right, keep going. 12 tenths, 14 tenths, 16 tenths, 18 tenths, and 20 tenths. Okay? Now it says 1 is the same as how many tenths? So I know that 1 whole is going to be the same as 10 tenths, right? Because anytime a fraction has the same number on the top or the bottom, it is equal to 1 whole. All right? Now, I want to think 2 is the same as how many tenths? So if 10 tenths is the same as 1 whole, I'm going to need another 10 tenths to make 2 wholes. And I know that if I have 2 10 tenths, that's going to give me 20 tenths. And I also know this is the same as 2 wholes because 10 goes into 20 2 times. All right, so we know that 10 tenths is the same as 1 whole, and 20 tenths is the same as 2 wholes. Okay? All right, so then on this line, I'm going to write 20 tenths. All right, now it says write 12 tenths as a mixed number. So let's look at 12 tenths. Okay? I want you to think, how many tenths do I need, because 10 is my denominator, how many tenths do I need in order to make 1 whole? I'm going to need 10 tenths. So I'm going to pull out that 10 tenths right here. Then I'm going to ask myself, remember this is like a number bond, how many do I have left over to get to 12 tenths? How many do I have left? I have 2 tenths left over. So that means 12 tenths as a mixed number is the same as 1 whole and 2 tenths. All right, now it wants us to count by 2 tenths again, but this time we're going to convert 1/2 and 1. Okay, so go ahead and think now. We're going to count by 2 tenths, but we're going to convert to 1/2 and 1. Okay, so let's start by 2 tenths. First of all, let's think about this. What is going to be 1/2 when we're counting by tenths? Okay, I know that 1/2, if we're counting by tenths, I know that 5 tenths is the same as 1/2. Okay, so let's start counting. And when we get to 5 tenths, we're going to convert to 1/2. And when we get to 1 whole, or when we get to 10 tenths, which is the same as 1 whole, we're going to write 1 instead of 10 tenths. Okay, so we have 0, then we have 2 tenths, we have 4 tenths, we have 6 tenths, we have 8 tenths, and now we have 10 tenths, but instead we're going to write 1 whole. Then we have 12 tenths, then we have 14 tenths, 16 tenths, 18 tenths, and you can write 20 tenths or you can write 2. I noticed that we didn't have to convert to 1/2 because nowhere in here did we have 5 tenths since we were counting by 2/10. I think they may have made a mistake here, and they probably wanted us to convert to 1 and 2, but I'm not really sure. But since we didn't even have 5/10, we didn't have to worry about converting to 1/2. So now it wants us to write 18/10 as a mixed number. So I'm going to do the same thing I did for 12/10. And I'm going to say, okay, I have 18/10. All right, and I'm going to ask myself, how many tenths do I need to make one whole? I know that I need 10/10. All right, and how many tenths do I have left over now that I pulled out 10 of those 18/10? I have 8/10 left over. So if I want to rewrite this as a mixed number, I'm going to say that 18/10 is the same as 1 whole and 8/10. Okay, so there you go. That is it for our daily warm-up. All right, now, down here, our new learning, our first strategy that we're going to learn is using a tape diagram to match the number sentence, okay? So then we're going to complete the number sentence. So here I know that they started with 3 units because the first whole number that they have here is 3 wholes. So they said, okay, I'm going to draw, that is not what I wanted, I'm sorry. I'm going to draw a tape diagram, and I'm going to split it into 3 units because I know that I have 3 wholes here, because my number sentence says 3 minus 2/4. Okay, I'm gonna label this 3. Now, I noticed that my denominator in the fraction that I'm subtracting is fourths. So because I'm subtracting fourths, I'm going to split my last unit here into 4 pieces, only the last one, because I can see that I'm only subtracting 2/4, so I'm not gonna have to subtract more than 1 whole unit. All right, so now I have 3 wholes, and I'm going to cross out 2 of the fourths that I just drew. So I'm going to cross out 1/4 and 2/4. All right, now what do I have left? Because that's going to be my answers. I can see that I have 2 wholes here, and I have 1 2/4 there. So my final answer of 3 minus 2/4 is going to be 2 and 2/4. So that is one way we're going to be solving these subtraction problems today, by using a tape diagram. Go ahead and flip to the next page. All right. The next strategy they're teaching you is using writing multiple subtraction and addition number sentences when you're given 3 different numbers. So you're going to remember this skill from probably like 3rd grade, when you used to do things like 2 plus 4 equals 6, and 4 plus 2 equals 6. And if that's true, then we know 6 minus 4 equals 2, and 6 minus 2 equals 4, right? You've definitely done that starting, I don't know, all the way in maybe 1st or 2nd grade. So this is going to be similar. We're just using fractions and mixed numbers now. Okay, so they had the fractions 5/6, 3, and 2 1/6 here. Okay, so they wrote 2 addition and 2 subtraction sentences. So the first one they said here is 5/6 plus 2 1/6 gives me 3 wholes. Okay, then they said if that's true, then I can swap these around, and I also know that 2 1/6 plus 5/6 equals 3 wholes. Okay, now if I know both of those sentences are true, then I can also use the opposite of addition, which is subtraction, and I can say 3 minus 5/6 is going to give me 2 1/6, and 3 minus 2 1/6 is going to give me 5/6. Okay, so it's really just about using those 2 operations to create 2 number sentences for each, but you're still using the same numbers. All right, so our next strategy, they gave you lots of strategies here, is solving using a number bond and a number line, okay? So essentially what we're doing here is we're going to take that whole number and we're going to break it up so that I have another fraction that I can subtract the fraction from. So here they said, okay, I have 4 2/3. 4 minus 2/3 right here. That's what I want to solve. So they rewrote this out and they said, okay, 4 minus 2/3. I can break up 4 right here, and I'm going to take out a fraction. I'm going to take out 1 whole, but I'm going to write it as a fraction. So since 3 is my denominator, I'm going to pull out 1 whole by writing 3/3, and that's what they did here. So now that I've pulled out 1 whole from 4, how many do I have left? And if you need to, if I were in class, I would be holding up 4 fingers, and I would say, okay, I have 3/3 that I pulled out, so I'm going to put down 1 finger because I took away 1 whole. So now I have 3 fingers left. I have 3 holes left over here, okay? But now I have this fraction right here that I can subtract 2/3 from. So they said 3/3 minus 2/3 is going to give me 1/3, which is where that came from. And then I still have this 3 left over right here, so I'm going to add the 3 to the 1/3 I have left, and I'm going to get an answer of 3 1/3. Okay? Now, we've done number lines before to subtract, so all they did over here was they numbered a number line from 3 to 4, and they did it from 3 to 4 because they said, okay, if I'm starting with 4 whole numbers, 4 wholes, and I'm subtracting 2/3, I know that I'm subtracting less than 1 whole, so I don't need my number line to go lower than 3. So all they did was label a number line from 3 to 4, and then they divided it into thirds. So here's 3 1/3, and here's 3 2/3. Then they said, okay, I'm going to start at 4, and I'm going to subtract 2/3. So I'm starting here, and I'm going to jump back. 1 2/3. And when I do that on my number line, I still get an answer of 3 1/3. Okay? Now, at the bottom, it's the same thing that they did above, where they break up that whole number and they pull out a fraction. So they took 6 here and they said, okay, I'm going to break this up. If I take 1 whole out of 6, but I use eighths because 8 is my denominator, I'm going to pull out 8/8. Now, if I started with 6, so put 6 fingers up, I took 1 whole away because I wrote 8/8. Now I have 5 fingers left, so 5 is my other part of the number bond here. So I have 5 8/8 now. So now I want to take the 5 8/8, and I want to subtract it from the 6/8, which is what they did right here. 8/8 minus 6/8. And I got 2/8. Okay, so we're done with that. We have 2/8. But now don't forget, you still have this 5 right here. So now they've added 5 to the 2/8, and they got an answer of 5 2/8. All right, I know that was a lot of talking on my part, so we're going to go on and we're going to start trying this out ourselves. All right, so you're on the next page, and you are on Let's Try. All right, so it says draw a tape diagram to match each number sentence, then complete the number sentence. All right, so I see that our whole number is 3, so we're going to label this tape diagram, break this tape diagram up into 3 units, like this. And then we're going to write that this whole tape diagram represents 3 holes. Okay? Now, I'm subtracting 1/3. What is my denominator? My denominator is 3. So if my denominator is 3, I'm going to take that last unit on the end of the tape diagram, and I'm going to divide it into 3 pieces, into thirds, just like this. Okay? So now I'm going to start with my 3 holes, and I'm going to cross off 1/3 because that's what I'm subtracting here. So I'm going to take my pen, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to cross out this 1/3. Okay? It's not there anymore. So now I have 1 hole, I have 2 holes, and I have 1/3 and another third. So I guess I really should have written 1 right here instead. All right, so 1 plus 1, I have 2 holes now. And I have 1/3 plus 1/3 is 2/3, so that's going to give me 2 holes and 2/3 as my answer. So I'm going to write 2 2/3 here. All right, and then in the little speech bubble it says, the tape diagram shows the difference is 2 2/3. All right, so now we have used the tape diagram strategy. So going down, we're going to solve using a number bond, and we're going to draw a number line to represent the number sentence. So they've already done some for us. So here they took the 4, okay, we have 4 minus 2/6. They took the 4 and they said, all right, I'm going to pull out one whole so that I can subtract 2/6 from it. So if we're dealing with sixths, I'm going to say, okay, self, how many sixths make up one whole? I know that 6/6 make up one whole. So I'm going to take my 4 wholes, and now I took one whole away because I did 6/6, and now I have 3 left, which is how they got this 3 wholes, okay? So now I'm going to say, okay, 3 6/6, right? So 6/6 minus 2/6 is going to give us 3, because we still have that whole number, and 4/6, okay? So we said, over here in the bubble it says subtract. We're going to say 6/6 from 2/6, right? Then we're going to add 3 to 4/6, because that was what we got when we subtracted 6/6 minus 2/6. And then we're going to get a final answer of 3 4/6. Okay? Now, on the number line, they've already labeled it for us from 3 to 4. So remember, whatever your denominator is, that's what you're breaking up your number line into. So we have 6. So I'm going to say, okay, I know that if I'm dealing with sixths, that halfway here is going to be 3 3/6, right? So now I have 3 1/6, 3 2/6, all right? Label those. Then I have 3 3/6, and then 3 4/6, 3 5/6, and then we know 3 6/6 is going to be the same as 4, okay? So we're going to represent the number sentence. 4 minus 2/6 is going to give us 3 4/6, okay? So I'm going to start at 4. I'm going to jump back 2/6 because that's what I'm subtracting. So 1, 2, and I'm going to land at an answer of 3 4/6. Okay? All right. So we represented the number sentence. You can either write 3 6/6 or 4. I'm not sure why they put a fraction there. 4 minus 2/6 is going to give me 3 4/6. Just like that. Okay? All right. So going on to the next page, which is going to be your problem set. All right, so on these first two, it says draw a tape diagram to match each number sentence, then complete the number sentence. All right, so let's look at this first problem. It says 4 plus 3/4. So the first thing I want you to do is you're going to draw a tape diagram, okay? And how many units are you going to break it up into? You're going to break it up into 4 units because 4 is our whole number. Okay, I know this is a little different where we always break up by the denominator, but we're starting with a whole number. So we're going to break it up into 4 units. Okay, just like that. And don't forget to label your whole, which is 4. Okay, so your tape diagram should look like mine. So now we're going to look at the denominator, and we're going to notice that we're adding fourths here, okay? And I'm honestly a little concerned why they put this problem in there, since they didn't give you an example yet of adding using the tape diagrams. We had only subtracted, but that's okay. We know how to adapt. So we are going to look at our denominator, and we know that we're adding fourths, okay? We're going to add 3 more fourths. So if I had all of my units divided up into fourths, right, like this, okay, each one would be divided up into fourths like this. But I still want you to be able to see where each unit is, okay? Now, we are just going to add 3 more fourths. So I'm not going to draw a whole nother unit on my tape diagram. I'm just going to draw 1/4, 2/4, and 3/4, okay? Just like that. So now I can see that I have 4 holes here plus 3/4 here. And that's going to give me a total of 4 and 3/4. Okay? So that is your answer for the first one. All right, now the second one, we definitely talked about this earlier. So the first thing, again, I want you to do is I want you to draw a tape diagram that represents the whole number. Okay, so our whole number is 5 here. We're doing 5 minus 2/5. So I want you to draw a tape diagram that represents the whole number. Okay, so now you should have a tape diagram just like mine that has 5 units, and your total labeled at the top should be 5. All right, now once again, going back and looking at that denominator, I am going to subtract 2/5 here. So I'm dealing with fifths. So that means I'm going to go to my very last unit in my tape diagram, and I'm going to divide this into 5 equal pieces, okay? Just like that, all right? And now, since I'm subtracting 2/5, I'm going to cross out 1/5 and 2/5, okay? And now I'm going to see how much I have left. So here I have 1, 2, 3, 4 holes and 3/5 left. So my final answer is going to be 4 and 3/5. Okay, so that is us applying our knowledge of using the tape diagram to add and subtract a whole number and a fraction. All right, so now we are going to solve using a number bond, okay? So we are going, and then it wants us to draw a number line to represent each number sentence, okay? So let's look at this first one. It says 5 minus 3/4, okay? I want you to think of 5 as our total, right, our whole number. Now, we need to be able to subtract a fraction from this, so I want to pull out a fraction to make this easier. Okay, so I'm going to say, all right, if I pull out 1 whole, but I write it as fourths because 4 is my denominator, I'm going to pull out 4/4 from this 5 holes, all right? Now, if I do that, I had 5 to start with. I took 1 away because even though I wrote it as a fraction, I took 1 whole away. How many do I have left? I have 4 holes left. So I've rewritten 5 as 4 holes and 4/4. Okay? Now, I have these 3/4 that I need to subtract. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 4/4 minus 3/4 is going to give me, and then we can subtract there, and I know that's going to give me 1/4, all right? But we can't forget about this whole number, so now I'm going to add this whole number to the fraction I have left. So I'm going to say 4 plus the 1/4 I had left is going to give me a total of 4 and 1/4, all right? Now, we have to show this on a number line. So I want you to take a number line, all right? So draw your number line. Okay. Oops, that is not what I wanted at all. Let's see. All right. Okay, so I have my number line. Now, I am going to look at my whole number. So what is the whole number that I'm starting with? I'm starting with 5. So I know that my endpoint is going to be 5, okay? And I'm subtracting 3/4. So I know that 3/4 is less than 1 because 1 would be 4/4. So I know that if I'm subtracting less than 1 from this number, I don't have to go any more than one number behind. So I'm going to label this from 4 to 5, okay? Now, I have to divide up my number line, so I'm going to look at my denominator, and I'm going to say, okay, I have fourths that I'm dealing with here, so I'm going to break this up into fourths, right? So, I know that I'm going to have 4 and 1/4, 4 and 2/4, and then 4 and 3/4, because we know 4 and 4/4 is the same as 5. All right, now I'm going to show the subtraction on my number line. So I'm going to go to my starting number. So my whole number is 5 that I'm going to start at. And I have 5 minus 3/4. So I'm going to start at 5 and I'm going to jump back 3/4. 1, 2, 3. All right. And when I land on 4 and 1/4. Okay. After that example, I encourage you to look at that example and use what you just did to help you solve the next one on your own. So I'd really like it if you would pause the video here and try to do the next one on your own. Even if you only get part of the way and you have to eventually play it to get through the whole thing because you need help, that's totally fine. But I really want you trying to solve some of these on your own still so that you are really understanding the concept, okay? So we have 7 and 3/9 here. All right, and once again, I'm going to do the same thing I did up above, using the above one as an example. 7 is going to be my whole number. Now, I need a fraction that I can subtract 3/9 from to make this easier. So I'm going to pull out one whole, and I'm going to pull it out using fractions. So I'm going to pull one whole out using ninths. So I know 9/9 is equal to 1 whole. So if I started with 7, and I took away 1 whole, I pulled out 1 whole out of that 7, I know that I'm going to be left with 6 and 9/9, okay? So now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to subtract the fractions now that I can do that. So I have 9/9 minus 3/9, and that's going to give me 6/9, okay? Now I have the 6/9, but I still need to add this whole number that I have over here. So I'm going to say 6 plus 6/9 is going to give me 6 and 6/9. Okay? All right. So now we have to show this on our number line again. So go ahead and draw your number line. Okay? Now, we are starting with 7. And we are subtracting 3/9. So if we're starting at 7, remember, I know that this is going to be my end point because I'm going backwards, I'm subtracting. And if I'm subtracting 3/9, I know that that's not 1 whole. So I don't need to go more than 1 whole behind 7. So my starting point is going to be 6. All right. 9 is my denominator, so I'm going to divide this into ninths. So I'm going to have 6 and 1/9, 2/9, 3/9, 4/9, 5/9, 6/9, 7/9, and 8/9. All right, now these are really hard to label, so I'm going to use the top and the bottom to try and help me space it out. So this is 6 and 1/9, 6 and 2/9, 6 and 3/9. All right. And we have 6 and 8/9 because we know 6 and 9/9 is 7 wholes. So I am going to start at 7 wholes and I'm subtracting 3/9. So I'm going to jump back 3/9, 1, 2, and 3. And when I do that, I land at 6 and 6/9, which is what we got for our answer. All right. Take a second to make any corrections if you did it on your own first, and then when you're ready, go ahead and play the video and move down to the last one. All right, so here it wants us to write 2 subtraction and 2 addition number sentences using these 3 numbers. All right, so we had gone over this before. So I'm going to start with addition, okay, because I just think addition's easier. So I'm going to say, okay, I have 6 and 3/8, and I have 3/8. All right, so what addition sentence can I write? Well, I know that my first one I could write 6 plus 3/8 equals 6 and 3/8. Right? I used all 3 numbers. Okay. Now I need to write another addition sentence. So this time I know that I can just flip the add-ins and it's still going to equal the same thing. So instead, I'm going to write 3/8 plus 6 equals 6 and 3/8. Right? And the answer is the same even though I flipped the add-ins. The add-ins are the 2 numbers that I'm adding together. Okay? Now, we're going to write 2 subtraction sentences. I'm going to use my addition sentences to help me write these subtraction sentences. So, I'm going to start with my answer here, right? Because subtraction is the opposite of addition. So I know that I'm going to be starting with my total, which is 6 and 3/8. Okay? And I'm just going to subtract one of the add-ins from it. So 6 and 3/8 minus 3/8 is going to equal just 6. Okay? I know that I can just switch the add-in that I used, so I can also say 6 and 3/8 minus 6 is going to give me 3/8. All right? So again, I used all these parts to help me create my 2 number sentences. Okay? So that is it for today. All right? If you need any help on today's lesson or any of the other lessons, just go ahead and reach out to me, and I will have week 7 day 2 posted tomorrow. So today is Wednesday, May 13th, and I will be posting this one today, and then I will post week 7 day 2 tomorrow on May 14th. Don't forget to go pick up your packets this week between 9 and 2. All right, you can pick them up at the school for the next 2 weeks. These are your last packets before your summer break, so please make sure you go get them. All right, please reach out if you need any help, and thank you for all of your hard work during this time. Bye, guys.